everyone, my name is Anne-Marie Chandi and welcome to the Positive Parenting webinar on how to keep children safe in schools during the post-movement control order. So naturally, some parents out there must be a bit anxious about what are the SOPs that your kids will have to follow when they go back into the real world again. Today we have with us Dato Dr. Zulkifli Ismail, formerly a professor of pediatrics and pediatric cardiology in University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or UKM, who will provide some insights for us. Dr. Zul has served as the head of the pediatric department and the director of Hospital University Kebangsaan Malaysia, HUKM. He's also served as the medical director of its private wing UKM Specialist Center and was a past president of the Malaysian Pediatric Association and is currently the editor of Berita MPA. He is also the chairman of the Positive Parenting Management Committee and serves as the chief editor of the Positive Parenting Guide. Welcome, Dato Zul. Today, we hope that you'll be able to allay some of the fears that parents have as their children go back and assimilate into society again. Yeah?
I hope so, yeah.
We're going to divide it into 5 topics, which are hygiene, nutrition, clothing, social distancing, and immunity. So if you don't mind, shall we just get on to the questions?
Yeah, sure. You have to excuse me. I'm wearing a mask here because I'm in the hospital. So obviously I'm keeping myself safe. But I think people should be getting used to wearing a mask as well at this time.
Okay. Which brings us to hygiene, yeah? And as a parent, how would I prepare my child for going back to school? What should be on my checklist of things for kids to do?
Yeah, it should be started from now, before the child goes to school. They should know that they should be washing their hands properly. The thing to remember is sing Happy Birthday song twice and make sure that every part of the hand is washed. And they should be advised regarding physical distancing as well, because they have to remember that they cannot be as usual. They can't be standing next to their friends, and they can't be very close with their friends as well. And like what I'm doing now, they should be wearing a mask when they are outside. And this is even so when they are in crowded places like in their classrooms and all that. They should actually try and avoid touching others as well as touching their own faces. They have to be reminded as well that they shouldn't be sharing their food or toys or stationery with their friends while they're at school. So if they are primed to all of these things and they have been told that they should clean the environment that they are in, it should make it easier for them to cope with going to school.
So how often should a child wash their hands, or should they carry sanitizer with them?
Well, they should be washing their hands any time that they have touched any surface, whether it is their desk or whatever that's in the school, the doorknob or the door. If there is a tap and there's water and soap, they should be washing with soap and water. If there is no soap and water around, then they should be using a sanitizer. Now, whether they should be carrying sanitizers themselves is a little bit controversial. The hand sanitizers have 70% alcohol, and this is not advised to be carried by the children because, you know, they may accidentally ingest it, or they may start playing with it and spray other children with it. So it may not be a good idea for primary school children to carry the sanitizers themselves, but there should be hand sanitizers available in the schools, and this is what we have actually advised as well.
Thank you. How about their temperature? As a parent, should I be checking their temperature regularly at home?
You should be taking their temperature before they go to school, because when they go to school, they'll take their temperature as well. If you want to have an added safety, then you can take the temperature when they come home. But we shouldn't be too obsessive about all this, because we don't want to have a generation of obsessive children, you know, in the future. So we just have to be a bit moderate about it. When there's a need, you take the temperature. If the child feels warm, you take a temperature. If not, just as usual. It's not a big thing.
What should I do if my child is running a temperature or has a slight cough or complains about body aches? Do I
Okay,
send
those
them to
are,
school?
yeah. If the child has any of these, then, or even if the child looks like he's tired and all that, you should not send the child to school. They should be monitored at home. You can monitor the temperature at home, and you can give them paracetamol to bring down the temperature and the body aches. But if it persists, or if the child looks ill, then if you see the child is getting more breathless, or he has diarrhea, then he should be taken to hospital so that he can be examined and the appropriate test be done.
Okay, so generally, if they are tired or have a little bit of fever, we keep them at home until the symptoms get worse. Only then do we take them to clinic for a proper checkup, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
There has to be a high degree of suspicion in these sort of cases.
And what is the temperature that we need to look out for?
The normal temperature will be about up to 37.2 degrees centigrade. So anything above that is a fever, and you would start to worry when it's above 38.5 degrees centigrade.
How do I differentiate between a regular fever, cold, flu, and symptoms of COVID-19?
Right, that's a good question. It's difficult actually to differentiate influenza from COVID-19 or from any other diseases. Now, as you know, children, number one, do not get infected very easily. Number two, they have very mild symptoms. And number three, they do not infect others as easily as adults. So most of the children who get infected actually get infected from adults. So they may have very mild symptoms. So if they have a fever, cough, breath, or if they get breathless and they have diarrhea, these are all symptoms of COVID-19 infection. But these are also symptoms of the influenza, and they're also sometimes part of the common cold as well. So it's very difficult to differentiate, and the only way that we can tell the difference is if we do a swab and then confirm the diagnosis. And it's important that we actually be aware that you have to make sure that the child does not have COVID-19, because otherwise this child will be infecting other people, even though we know that the risk of transmission is actually very low among children.
So is there a different test for children for COVID-19, or is
No,
it the
it's the
same
same
swab
test.
test?
It's the same PCR
Okay.
test that we do for children.
What if my child is afraid to go to the clinic to get tested for this?
If the child is afraid to go to the clinic, then you have to monitor the child at home. He may have COVID-19, and it makes no difference if he recovers from it, which in 80% of cases will recover. It makes a lot of difference if you get it from him, and then or the other parent gets it from him, or other adults get it from him, or worse still, the grandparents get it from him. So that's the danger of this disease now.
We move on to nutrition now. And during this time, what types of food should I be feeding my family and especially my children?
All of the children, or all of us, should be taking a balanced meal, and which includes the appropriate amounts of carbohydrates, the appropriate amount of meats, and appropriate amounts of vegetables and fruits. And this is all that we require, and there's no need for any supplements if the food is balanced.
Okay. What about when my child goes to school? Is it okay for them to eat at the canteen, or should I be making the extra effort to pack up some food for them to take every day?
The current recommendation is that it is better that the child takes packed food from home, and it's better that the food is given to the child, and then the child is advised to eat this food by himself and not share the food with other people, and also include the utensils that he will need, fork and spoon and all that, so that he doesn't have to borrow from somewhere else or use other things. This is all just to minimize the amount of contamination that he gets from other people.
Okay, so if I was to be vigilant, I would make sure my child has a packed lunch or packed food for school together with the utensils.
Exactly.
And they would wash their hands after eating, before eating.
They should.
Yeah, and there's no need for me to add any supplements if my children and my whole family are getting a balanced meal. Correct?
Yes. If they're getting a balanced meal, there's no need to add any supplements.
Okay. We move on now to clothing. Does the mask have to be changed regularly?
Yeah, as long as the child is out of the house and in areas where there's a crowd, or there's a confined space where there are a lot of people, he should be wearing a mask. And that will reduce the risk of transmission drastically. So whether you have the mask, whether you wear a surgical mask like what I'm wearing, or whether you wear a very expensive 95 mask, or you wear a cloth mask, it really doesn't matter. All it means is that you have something that protects your mouth and nose from getting secretions from other people.
If my child wears a fabric mask, do I have to change that every day?
Yeah, it's a good idea if you're buying fabric masks to buy a few, because then you can alternate or change it as and when necessary. Probably, preferably every day, but then like we will change ours every day. But you can also say every other day, because the fabric mask has a layer inside that you can add something on to you should change. So this should be okay, and fabric masks are okay, and they're quite fashionable now, and I think a lot of kids are actually buying this. I like the batik ones. But
yes, I have one
to wear these in the hospital.
I have one here that's
that
batik.
looks nice. Yeah.
So Dr. Zul, what should you layer the mask with inside?
Yeah, there's you can put tissue paper, or anything that absorbs on the inside. They sell it online as well, those liners that you can put in as well, and this will just have an added protection, so that it prevents the virus from getting in, or any other contaminants from getting into the mask. And it also ensures that the inside of the mask is clean all the time. That's very important, because you don't want to be inhaling things that are there that by accident you thought was clean anyway. So it's a good idea to have a layer inside the mask.
What about gloves? People encouraged to wear gloves or
no,
not?
No, they're not. I think that's an overkill. Some people I see when I go buy groceries, they wear gloves in the when they look at things and all that. As long as you wash your hands properly, or you have access to hand sanitizers, and you keep your hands clean, and most important of all, you keep your hands clean, but you also remember that you shouldn't be touching your eyes, you shouldn't be touching your nose, and you shouldn't be touching your mouth, which is what happens to a lot of people. The first thing I see when people take off their mask is they scratch their nose. So that defeats the purpose. So you have to be conscious all the time that your hands are a potential source of infection. So whatever you touch, we must be aware that surface may be contaminated. So you have to wash your hands. Then don't touch your face.
How about disposing of the mask when they get home?
Yeah, when they get home, obviously it has to be disposed separately, and you can dispose it with ordinary garbage. There's no problem there.
Okay. What if other children don't have masks at school? This is not so much a medical question.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That one, I think well, I mean, it's very difficult because it will depend on the school, what their rules are. And the other one is, of course, you can tell your child that, if another child has got no mask, maybe it's a good idea not to play too close with that child. Okay, we don't want children to grow up stigmatizing other children. All right, so this is very important. We don't want them to grow up thinking that children who don't wear masks are dirty. So we still be friends with them, but you just have to be careful. Or if you are kind enough, then you can buy a set of masks for that other child. That will solve the whole solve the whole issue.
Okay, that's a great idea. What about their school bags and their stationery? Should these things be cleaned often as well?
Yeah, well, they should be cleaned regularly, but we don't have to be obsessive about sanitizing the thing when the child comes back from school. I think you just keep it clean, and then you keep it one side of the house. The child takes out whatever that he needs to do for his homework, and then take it out to school. That's good enough already. You don't want to have a situation where the child is the school books and the bags and everything else is sanitized and sprayed with sanitizer before they come home. That's carrying it a bit too far. But it is important that children, when they come home from school, it is important that they have a shower before they start doing anything else in the house. That is a basic hygiene.
They remove their school uniforms and have a shower straight away when they return. Okay. We move on to physical distancing now. In school, they are obviously going to share a lot of things like books. They might be passing books down to their friends and even using school stationery. What's the advice on that?
Yeah, I think that should be avoided. If school stationery should be avoided, if it is not, it is unavoidable, then the stationery should be cleaned or at least sanitized or disinfected before they get shared from one child to another, because this is one source of infection. And they shouldn't be sharing their stationery or their books with other children as well.
What about the teachers? Because the teachers will come into contact with many of their books. Is there any precaution that the teacher can take?
Yes, that's an issue. The teacher obviously will have to mark the books and all that. Now, I think we need to have a system where this doesn't have to happen, at least during this time when we are having this outbreak, where the teachers don't have to actually
physically mark
the books and physically mark them.
Okay. Should we advise our children to clean the surfaces of their desks and chairs?
This is something that I feel our children should be doing, because this is something that I learned when I was in Japan. The children there are made to clean the environment in their school. So they actually clean the toilets in their school. It not just builds up discipline, it builds up a sense of community belonging. So whatever that is in their desk, whatever is on their desk actually belongs to everybody else as well. So I think it's a good idea that schools start introducing this and make sure that children are responsible for their own property as well as for common use property. So that means they clean the doorknobs as well as they pass, and they clean the classroom before they go home. These are good habits that we can take this COVID outbreak and take advantage of it to instill in our children. I think it will go a long way to developing civic consciousness and all that.
Yeah, fantastic. So it becomes a teachable moment where teachers can actually teach children to be responsible for their spaces around them.
Yes, there's a lot of things that we can actually teach children from this outbreak, and one of them is, of course, cleanliness, and the other one is shared communities and shared belongings and all that, and how to keep clean. And these are good values that we should be introducing to children.
What about during recess? Is it okay for them to go out and play together?
No, children are children. You can't stop them from playing. And I think they should be able to. They should be allowed to play, but they must be informed, and they must be told that when they play, they shouldn't be in too close contact with other children, and they shouldn't be touching each other too much. There shouldn't be much of physical contact as far as them. But they can have their social moments. They can have their social chats with their friends, you know, and they can still play some games that don't involve very much of contact. They can still play, say, badminton, or if they play tennis, they can play tennis. If they play table tennis, they can play table tennis, yeah, ping pong. Or, you know, but obviously you can't be playing rugby, you can't be playing catching, you can't be playing football at this time. So other games is okay. I mean, you cannot, basically children must learn to enjoy going to school.
Our final topic is immunity, and are there other ways other than through our nutrition that we can help our children boost their immunity?
Yeah, they should be getting enough sleep and rest. I think that's important. So whenever they should sleep at a regular time every day, say at 10 p.m. and wake up regularly in the morning. And then at the same time, they should also get their regular vaccinations. And we actually advocate that children should get their influenza vaccines and also complete their pneumococcal vaccinations, because these will protect them against infections in the lungs, which is where the virus likes to go. So I think they should complete all of their vaccinations and then get all these extra vaccines like influenza, pneumococcal, or and complete their MMR vaccinations, because these will help to protect them.
Okay. Those are all the questions that our readers had asked. For now, I'll just recap the points again, Dr. Zul. Important for kids to wash their hands and stay apart from each other, as in to respect that physical distance between each other. Although it's fine to still have friendships and play together, parents shouldn't be obsessive about sanitizing everything all the time. But it's important to remind your children to wash their hands often and for 20 seconds at each time, right? Which is singing happy birthday twice. Correct?
Yes.
And important to make sure your child sleeps well and eats a balanced meal.
That's
and if you
about it.
haven't taken your kids for vaccinations, it's time for you to make sure they have received all their vaccinations.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. That covers
Okay,
it.
thank you so much. Thank
All right.
you, Dr. Zul, for those very timely reminders and tips, which I'm sure all parents out there will find very useful. And thank you everyone for tuning in today for Positive Parenting session on how to keep your children safe in school. We hope you found the session helpful, and we wish all of you the best.